Here we go. I am going to
That was
switch
the passive aggressive
view.
reminder,
It,
apparently, because I just hit the button.
it was perfect. I'm going to tag us. Let's see. Pin, right? Pin
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You
and
can pin us.
pin. And where's the other pin? Add the pin. There we go. All right. Perfect. Welcome everyone. Well, we're not quite at 10:30, so I'm gonna give it one more minute before I start my spiel to let you know how what we're gonna do today and enjoy this time. Good to see everyone.
And Kelly, your embroidery piece is hanging on my wall downstairs, and I'm working on a art piece that will be coming your way. It may take, I'm very slow, but it'll eventually show up.
That sounds exciting. Well, thank you. It's 11:30, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm really excited about our conversation today. As you would have noticed from the signups, we are streaming live on LinkedIn, and also we are recording, and so this recording will be available on LinkedIn at my profile. Erica will has the option to put on her profile as
It
well
will be.
and fantastic. And also I do have a YouTube channel, Think Beyond AP, where you can find it as well. We are going to like have a little bit of back and forth about the topic of the day, and I encourage everyone to um, add your questions, comments, raise your hands. I chose the Zoom format so that it would be interactive, and so we want welcome you into the discussion. And so with that, I will just go ahead and introduce Erica Holthausen. I'm sure a lot of you know her already. So founder of Catchline Communications and consultant to authoritative experts. Welcome, Erica. I'm very excited to have you on LinkedIn Live this week.
And I'm excited to be here, my friend. Anytime I get to hang out with Erin is a good time. So,
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fantastic conversation. Welcome to those who are coming in. So, as you know, I'm a lawyer, and so I look at AI from the perspective of our legal obligations, but it's impossible to think about our legal obligations in isolation. Obviously, there is a fine line between our legal obligations and our ethical obligations. But still, I lean towards like what do we have to do to maintain our contractual obligations to our clients as well as our legal obligations in connection with copyright law. Whereas Erica, as a creator, has, first of all, she's just a better human being than me, I think, all around. She's like thinking about the earth and about all the things and our emotional intelligence and all these things. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And so she brings a wonderful point of view to the conversation of AI that's beyond just the legal issues. And so we are going to go ahead and get started. And, one of the things that Erica brought up that honestly wasn't on my bandwidth was the emotional impact of generative AI. So I'd love for you to get started with that, Erica.
yeah, so there's a couple of different ways to go or to think through that. But one is more and more we're seeing, and there was just an article by Corn Ferry on their website about this idea of it can be really challenging to do we admit to using AI? Because in some circles, when you confess, oh, I've used AI, it's like, oh, now I don't trust you, or you're lazy, or like whatever the judgment is. And at the same time, flip side, if you don't confess to using AI, well, you're behind the times, you're a Luddite, you're just like, the world is going to pass you by. So there's that internal tension that just exists anyway. And I find it fascinating and weird. Um, But, the truth is, like with so many other things, it's a false binary. It's not one or the other. The problem is some people do outsource their thinking to AI. Other folks use AI as a thought partner. So in this month's Harper's Magazine, they have a thing called Harper's Index. And one of the things that they found is that 38% of corporate executives feel comfortable letting AI make decisions on their behalf.
Insane. Those numbers, absolutely insane.
Right out of your mind. We know AI makes shit up. Why? Why are we saying, okay, you can make these decisions on my behalf? Um, a shocking 44% would defer to AI's reasoning over their own. So, a big part of this, I think, is there is so much of this pressure to produce, 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 produce that it encourages us, and these tools, frankly, do encourage us to outsource our thinking to them. So, a couple of the things that I think that would help is first, break free of some of these unrealistic expectations around production. We could get into all of the capitalism things about that because
Yeah,
that's going to be
so.
some work, but like that is one of the steps. And then also normalize the use of AI as a thought partner and learn how to use it that way as opposed to as something that's doing its thinking for us. Um, the other piece that goes with this, so that's sort of the work related piece. The other piece that goes with this is MIT Media Lab researchers found that if you're using AI heavily, whether it's a chatbot or generative AI, that can actually increase loneliness and reduce real life social connections. So there are these implications that go so much beyond our workaday life and reinforce the idea that is like we really need to be intentional about how we use it, when we use it, what it looks like. Um, and are we balancing that with, oh, I don't know, like lunch with a friend, having
Yeah.
a conversation with a human being? So yeah, those are some of the things that came up with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really tough, on are we using AI when we would have gone next door and knocked on a colleague's door, say, hey, I want to run this thing by you. And now we're using AI to do that. And that's partly a sign of the times. I mean, how many of us on this call work remotely? How many of us have someone who's next door that they can knock on and or run into over a coffee? And so, yes, we need to be mindful that it doesn't take place of our human interactions. But, we're not even getting to the people who are literally lonely and isolated and have turned to AI as friends and as emotional support. It's been interesting to read about, some of the uses with respect to psychological well-being for people who really are isolated, but making sure that we are understanding and being intentional about our use. I think a lot of what we're going to talk about today is being intentional about our use, that AI isn't the enemy, but we can be smart and mindful and intentional about the way that we use it to make sure that we aren't deferring to it where our judgment, everyone on this call is an expert, and we want to make sure that we aren't deferring to it. They will never be human. I don't care how fast they can process information, they will never be human.
And occasionally, AI is our enemy. So, and what I mean by that is like how it is designed. That's like this big black box. And it wasn't too long ago. It was last month, and there's an article in The Guardian about this. Elon Musk's chatbot Grok started to insert white nationalist conspiracy theories without telling anybody. I mean, first, it's Elon Musk. So I don't
Yes.
know, use your head. He's probably going to do what he's going to do. So, but there are these things that are happening behind the scenes that we don't get to see. So, bad actors are bad actors. These are tools that are created by human beings. Human beings have biases. Human beings, some are also just absolutely ghastly. So, there sometimes it is an enemy.
Absolutely. We always need to be mindful of the sources. There's an old saying, measure twice, cut once. And that applies to how we use AI as well. Making sure we understand the tools that we're using. What is the source of the data? These are massive data sets. And where does it come from? Has it been like they're starting to, audit it the best you can, with respect to things like bias. But even what I would call, let's say, a neutral um, uh, uh, generative AI system, I'll use an example. This was from earlier this year, after right around the time that Trump was inaugurated. And I asked Claude a question that was about something that happened more recently. And they said, we don't know the answer to that because we haven't been updated since October. And and then I asked them, well, I asked them something about Trump's inauguration. And they knew the answer to that. And I'm like, well, how do you know that if you haven't been updated since October? And they said, well, we have been selectively updated. Like they hadn't like scanned the whole internet since October, but they've been selectively updated for things that the powers that be thought needed to be updated in the meantime before they had scanned the whole internet again. And so that was very shocking to me, like that could happen. Like I think, at least they say, okay, October 1 is our date of, currency. But no, it's October 1 plus whatever somebody says they've decided to add in to the data set.
Mhm.
And to my knowledge, Claude isn't part of the evil empire, but you never know. So we definitely, but I like to also, in terms of AI possibly being a bad actor and possibly giving bad advice. I mean, that's true of people too,
Yeah.
right? And so the thing about generative AI, even though we call it hallucinations, they're hallucinations because it's intended to behave like humans. I mean, that's
Yeah.
why it makes mistakes
There's
because
been
humans
lots of
make
garbage on
mistakes.
the internet
Yes.
way before AI showed up.
That's exactly right. And so we definitely need to make sure we're on that. Sarah, let's see. Can I, can you unmute yourself? If not, I will do so. Let's see. Participants. Okay. Looks like you have to unmute. Oh, you're unmuted, Sarah. Go ahead.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Scala. Pronouns are she, her, hers. I had Gemini write me a 10-page white paper recently, but I told it to only use my website and my blogs as sources.
Mhm.
Do I need to mention that Gemini helped or no?
That is
I
an
love
ethical
this
question. I'm going to
question.
let Erica take that
Because it's only my IP that
Yeah.
it's used in it, but it did help me.
So I love this question because um, right. In part because, okay, so I'm a recovering attorney. Erin is a current attorney who actually knows stuff about IP. I don't know anything about IP, but I am a recovering attorney, and I love questions where I get to say it depends. So, and there is no right answer. So, couple of different things that I think about with this are like ethically, you're building your reputation, trust, and transparency is important. So I think it can be helpful to say, hey, here's how I use AI. Like one of the things I am currently doing is creating an AI use policy for my business, which is me, I, and myself and two cats. Um, but it's going to go on my website because I use AI to help me with repurposing articles that I've written because it can do it so much better than I can. And like what you're talking about, Sarah, I basically say, like, don't go off the page, only use this, repurpose, give me a whole bunch of art of LinkedIn posts that I can use. Um, I like to disclose because so the reasons I am choosing to disclose first, I want to normalize using it smart, using it intelligently, and showing other people how to use it in what my opinion is an intelligent way. Um, Disclosures, we'll see where they go. Like disclosures may be required at some point. The UK is already looking into that. Where the UK goes, typically California follows. Where California goes, the rest of the country often follows when it comes to these things. So that might be a requirement. It also, when you disclose how you use AI, this is where it gets back into the legal part, and I'm going to toss the ball to Erin. But when you disclose how you use AI generated content cannot be copyrighted. But if you disclose how you use it, then it's like saying, "Hey, this is the stuff that's mine," and it gives the powers that be the tools they need to figure out, is this copyrightable or is it not copyrightable? Um, and then a growing number of, I work with a lot of publications, but a growing number of publications and corporate clients require you to disclose how you use AI in your work. So even if you don't disclose it publicly, I highly recommend getting into the habit of basically being like, okay, what did I use? How did I use it? Kind of creating a little AI disclosure statement for yourself. And I recommend everybody have an AI usage policy, because then it's, at one point I was like, I'm going to put an AI disclosure statement at the end of every single thing that I do. That was a banana pants idea. I'm going to have a policy that I will refer back to with all of the things. So,
Yeah, great. I agree with everything that Erica said, but I will also add, and I did see your additional questions here, Sarah. You know, I also verbally talk about the fact that I use AI in my business all the time, which is like all of my content is spoken first. Like I'm not doing a ton of writing anymore these days. I used to write all of my newsletters from scratch, and now I just have podcasts and I do LinkedIn Live. So 4 times a month, I'm creating oral content, and then AI is used to turn it into blog posts, newsletter, and social media content. And so, because I talk about AI, I talk about the fact that I use it all the time. If I was just a litigator and I did a podcast about, domestic violence, and I then had someone turn my podcast into that newsletter and into those LinkedIn posts, I would not honestly talk about AI. The fact that it is me, I'm not pretending that it's not somebody else's expertise. It's my expertise. We're just transforming it. And so it really depends on, the way you think about that content. Is that content, the transformation, the expression of it, is that part of what you're selling? Or is it just getting it out there in different formats that people consume? People consume information in different ways, and it's a way to make sure it's available to people where they are and how they like to consume it. Regarding what's coming forward, right? States are ahead of what the federal government is doing with respect to regulating AI, as they are with data protection as well. One of the things to be mindful of in our big, well, I'm not going to say our big, beautiful bill, the big, beautiful bill, if it is passed, it has provision in there that preempts state regulation of AI for 10 years. You can imagine who influenced that. And so if, in fact, we don't have any federal or state regulation of AI, it makes it even more important for us as professionals to self-regulate. And there are lots of places where we, self-regulate. Margie, I know you're on, ICM, that they, Institute of IMC, and that they, have, rules about how to be ethically, be a consultant, and different, professional groups have the same, and we need to also look at it that way. But if the states do succeed in regulating it, there will be issues regarding transparency, not about whether you turned your podcast and do a blog post, but is the public interacting with an AI chatbot instead of a human? Because right now, sometimes it's hard to tell. I mean, it's getting so good, to make sure that there's transparency. They know that, are you using AI to make important decisions? That these are things that people need to know and that your clients will 100% want to know, and who you're interacting with. Regarding copyrightability, correct that AI generated content is not eligible for copyright protection. Sarah, in your instance, it sounds like you were taking in content that was already original to you and just using AI to put it in a different format. So it would still be your content. So it's not, the original parts of the output are eligible for copyright protection. And it sounds like all of the output was original to you, or most of it, obviously. Maybe they cleaned up something. So probably yes. Did I miss anything? The big budget buster bill of BS. I like that.
Sarah was also asking if the AI usage policy would be part of the privacy policy. I'm going to separate them out because the privacy policy nobody reads.
Right.
The AI usage policy, I want it to be a little bit clearer. And for mine, I am going way beyond what is actually necessary or required. I'm in the process of identifying every single AI tool. So most of the time, these policies apply only to generative AI, not all of the AI tools. But I'm identifying all of the AI tools and basically saying these are the rules that govern that usage.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things about AI usage policies, including AI disclosure, like what you're going to disclose. I mean, we talk a lot about generative AI because we all know it is the chat GPTs and the Claudes, but AI is in kind of everything. Right here in Zoom, there's AI functionality that I could have turned on that would not be generative AI, but it helps, provide some additional reporting and things like that with respect to this meeting. It appears in Adobe. Adobe is a software that I use on the daily, and it has AI functionality. And as a lawyer, I don't now, but I have played with document review AI. And so, do we need to disclose every time we use AI to help us run our businesses? There's AI in ClickUp. I have, God, not that I know how to use it, but I have ClickUp in my business. It has AI functionality. Do I need to disclose everywhere I use AI in my business? To that, I would say no on the disclosure side, but yes on the AI usage policy to make sure you understand how you're using it. Is it appropriate to use AI to process clients' confidential data? Is it appropriate to use AI when it's not a closed system, when they're going to be using, even if it's, this is one that kills me, where there'll be a SaaS solution where it is processing the confidential information of its clients, and it'll say we only use anonymized data to help, improve our product. Well, if my confidential information is, the next big thing, the fact that it's anonymized does not help me at all. The fact they can't link it to me doesn't matter. And the fact is that my, trade secret is now being used to improve your product. And so we need to be really mindful again. What are we using? How are we using it? Do we understand what that tool is doing with our data? So all right. I've not been paying attention to the comments.
I'm on it with the chat.
Excellent. So let's talk about the environmental concerns, because that's also something that I'm kind of just on the edges of, and I think you've paid much more attention to it.
Yeah. So this is something that has really influenced how I use especially generative AI. But according to MIT News, generative AI is incredibly resource intensive. So, two quotes from this article. First, researchers have estimated that a ChatGPT query consumes about 5 times more electricity than a simple web search. Second quote, by 2026, the electricity consumption of data centers, which is what runs these things, is expected to approach 1,050 terawatts. I don't know what that means, but which would bump data centers up to fifth place on the global list between Japan and Russia. So it's a huge, huge energy hog. And there's a whole bunch of articles that go into this. I'll pop that article into the chat for those who are interested. But as a result of this, like, y'all, I'm a tree hugger.
Mhm.
So this was this really, really bothered me. So as a result of this, I have started to, I'm basically actively adding friction into the process because AI also has a lot of addictive tendencies and people can get very addicted to it. And I've gone in to ask a simple question and ended up with 50 pages of notes because it's so freaking helpful that it's like, would you like to know this? And I'm like, why, yes, I would. And like before I know it, I've got pages and pages of notes. So to keep myself from going down a rabbit hole I don't actually want to go down and to keep to sort of help deal with the cognitive dissonance of like this is shit for the environment and I'm an environmentalist. How does this work for me? One of the things that I've done is first, I decided not to purchase a paid subscription. So that limits my queries. It limits how often I can do this. So I have to be very intentional about, okay, what am I going to use this for? And then to really keep myself accountable, um, I'm an old school Yankee, y'all, which means cheap. So to really keep myself accountable, and to sort of mitigate some of the environmental damage done by my use of generative AI, I make a $10 donation to the Natural Resources Defense Council for every session I have with Claude. That also helps me be very intentional about, okay, why am I turning to this? What is it that I am trying to get out of this? What is going to be worth the $10 donation? And then, I give it to NRDC because the earth needs a good lawyer. So that's part of the decision-making process that I went through to kind of figure out, okay, how do I make this something that I can like sleep with myself about?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, you have made me be more mindful about this and think about it more. I live in a part of the country that is basically a data center, like mushrooms. They grow up every time it rains. There's another one. And thinking about, currently NAACP is about to sue I don't know which of his companies it is, but one of Elon's companies that has their data centers, is it outside of Nashville or one of the places in
Yeah,
Tennessee
yeah, I
that
think
is,
so.
polluting the air, surely the water as well. And they are significant externalities to using AI. Um, you know, is there kind of the other side of that? Like just to, throw out, you know, if AI does what we've been saying technology would do forever, which is we've always said that, it will free up our time. We will be able to work on higher level at a higher level. We don't have to do those repetitive tasks, that there's no those entry level tasks, that we can now kind of spend our time with deep thinking and making the world a better place. If we can somehow succeed in getting those positive attributes from AI as a technology that we've kind of been promised for the last 50 years. Could it make the world a better place? Could we have, higher productive profitability in our corporations that they keep, for the reason that they keep holding down wages. And so, maybe it's too Too optimistic. I mean, I don't know. There's no reason to believe it will benefit anyone but the people who own the equity in these companies. But you know, could there be some benefits to it as well? Would be my
Yeah.
question. Yeah.
And I wanted to quickly, because Cheryl Volpe put into the chat an article about saying thank you to GPT costs millions in electricity.
Yes.
Here's why I do it anyway. My brain has absolutely no idea that I'm talking to a robot as opposed to to a human being. So I don't want to get into the habit. I don't want to rewire my brain to be an asshole and to treat people poorly. So I like, yes, it does take even more energy. And yes, I do it because I think it's much more important for me to keep my humanity than than that other thing. And that's also part of like that goes into some of the why I choose to be incredibly intentional with my use of AI and why I give to an environmental organization. I do think I love where you're going, Erin. I hope that that world happens. I don't know that that one will. I don't have a whole lot of faith in that, but I do believe that we could make these things less environmentally harmful. I think that that is something that will hopefully happen over time. But for as long as I'm kicking around on this earth, it's going to be $10 to NRDC.
That is a great habit. And I am nice, and we've had this conversation about why I like ChatGPT for kind of just, kicking around ideas, because it's so polite. And I find it to be much more polite than Claude, for instance. And my first, when I was first like comparing the two, and I'm like, wow, my experience with chat is so much more positive than my, and it wasn't about the answers, it was just the way it made me feel. It made me feel like I'm a genius when I was on chat. It made me feel like what a dummy you are when I was on Claude. And so, and so I have as a habit, I say please at the beginning, and I don't thank it, but I do say please and can you, that kind of thing. And I feel guilty, like, have I asked it too many times? The same question? Are they getting bored yet? I don't think you can, but yeah. So,
And it
go ahead.
I was going to say it's the fact that it can't get bored that
Yes.
I really appreciate it. And it can't get its feelings hurt when I'm
Right.
like, one of the things that I recently used Claude for, and it was worth all $10,
Mhm.
was figuring out like what is the title? Like Erica is I I don't know, what the
Yeah.
heck am I? Like I know what I
Mhm.
do, but like what the
Mhm.
heck am I? And we went through and I would say like give me 10 ideas. Like here's
Yes.
what I do, here's who I work with. Give me 10 ideas. I'm like these are all trash. And it's like this is why I don't like this one, this is why I don't like this one. Give me 10 more. And ultimately we got to authority development consultant. And I was like, "Ooh, I like that.
Yes.
That's what I do. I'm an
Mhm.
authority development consultant." But there was no like, oh, am I going to hurt their feelings? There was no like doubling down on an idea because it's
Mhm.
mine, because
Mhm.
it's Claude.
Okay.
Claude doesn't care, which
Mhm.
is delightful.
Yeah. But that, brings us to, the intersection between our ethical obligations and our legal obligations. And then one of those is when we think about, are we just, stealing someone else's stuff when we're using ChatGPT? But when we are doing client work, when we are presenting something, delivering something to a publication, in some ways, AI has changed the game, but in a lot of ways, it hasn't really changed the game. We have always been required, typically when we have clients, that the deliverable will be original. And that hasn't changed. If whether or not the client agreement says anything about AI, if it says they want to own 100% of the rights in that deliverable, it can't have been created by AI. And so we still have those same obligations, even if it isn't literally in the agreement, even if states haven't passed a law regarding the disclosure. We still have those obligations in our representations and warranties. We still have confidentiality obligations. We mentioned, some examples about when we're handling a client's information that we have to be responsible with it. And when we are creating outputs, as a professional, to be ethical, we have to really understand the content that we're creating. So we can't kind of offload our thinking, right? We have to make sure that we thoroughly understand, anything that we're using, whether in our writing and client deliverables or in any way. So yeah,
Yeah.
the more things
I,
change, the more they stay the same in some ways.
and I've heard people say, well, it's a disclosure, therefore I'm not responsible for what. Oh, no, honey.
Yes,
If your name is on it, it is
exactly.
your responsibility. You can have as many disclosures as your little heart desires and be like, it's a disclosure statement saying I used it. It's not the other word that I can't think of right now that's basically like I absolve myself from
Disclaimer.
responsibility for that. It's not a disclaimer. And you can rock on with a disclaimer if you really want to, but all that does is make me go, you are clearly somebody I would never work with in a million years because you have to be responsible for your own stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, any last words, Erica?
No, I thank you all for showing up. Anybody who would like, I'm going to put together all of these research things that I've got. Feel free to ping me on LinkedIn and I'll get all of it to you. They're also going to be turned into something official at some point. How's that for clarity?
I love it. Thank you all for joining. Again, if you want if you're not connected to me or to Erica, find us on LinkedIn. And yeah, and if you have think of questions later on, send them on over and we'd be happy to answer them. So thanks again.
Thanks all.